Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed the rod video earlier this week. Let's talk a little bit about reels today. So, I carry a bunch of model reels, and part of that's because I carry a bunch of older reels. My loose reels. Matter of fact, I'm trying to think. Every single reel in my boat will be some form of loose reels, and I buy really expensive ones. I buy really cheap ones. And I will tell you, if I win the lotto, I'm going to show you a reel today that will be the reel that's the only reel in my boat. But I can't afford to have, I don't know what I got, I'm going to call it 30 reels in a $200 and something reel. So I've got a bunch of inexpensive reels. But in the grand scheme of things, I kind of want two types of reel. I want a traditional narrow spool reel that's really comfortable in my hand, right? And by the way, I'm gonna put links to all these reels down below, so if I don't get the model number right, you'll have the link down below to the reels. And again, some of my reels are older, and this one's not. Some of my reels are a little bit older, and you won't be able to find them ones that look just like them. But I like, for the vast majority of my fishing, this is the most comfortable reel to fish with. But I also like a bigger wide spool reel, and I like a bigger wide spool reel specifically for throwing 20-pound and heavier line when I gotta throw it a long ways. It carries more line, you can throw baits further. So Carolina rig, A rig, football jig, biffle bug, pretty much all I throw on this great big wide spool reel. Now I will also throw, if I get out that 9-foot loose cranking rod up there, I will also throw a great big crankbait on a wide spool rod as well. So those are the two. Now in my thinner reels, the vast majority of my reels are 6.4 or 6.8 to 1 reel ratio, according, because they don't make every model in every speed. But I really want, we've talked about this in videos before, I want to be able to repeat that cadence, right? I want to be able to throw a bait out there and know how fast I was reeling, and if I pick something, I know they're biting it or they're not biting it, I don't want to either repeat it or I do want to repeat it. So I really, really, really stick to the same retrieve on most of my reels. The exception to that is when I want to throw baits that I want to make sure I keep down in the water column. So like this mag draft, this is a 5.6, I think. That's a 5.6 to 1 reel ratio. That red reel, I put the link below. That's an inexpensive reel. It's $130-ish reel if I remember right. A very inexpensive reel. That got stuck in a jacket. I had to cut the hook off of it. And then same thing, by the way, on my A-rig. I have a tendency, as you know, when you reel an A-rig, they rise up. That's a wide spool reel, and that's a 5-something to 1. Yeah, 5 to 1 reel ratio. An incredibly slow reel. But the advantage to it is it really stays deep a lot better than if I'm reeling it with a 6.4 or faster. I also do have a couple of reels that are really, really fast. And for example, on my jig and spoon up there, on stuff that I live target fish, when I'm fishing with my trolling motor and looking at fish, and I see something, I want to get that bait up real fast and throw back to it, I move up to 7 to 1 in faster reel ratios. Now, I don't love them, and this may be purely in my head, but it seems to me it's harder to reel a bait, especially a bait with much resistance, on a faster reel, 7s and 8s, than it is on those 6s. But I own them and I use them. I also have toyed with throwing a fast reel, and probably do now, on my Carolina rig. So let's see what that one right there is actually. So yeah, so that's a 7 1 to 1 on my Carolina rig. And my thinking there is I make really long casts. I'm usually throwing at a hard spot. When I come through that hard spot, I don't want to waste time getting that bait reeled up and throwing it right back on that same hard spot again. So that's something that I do with my reels, is throw that wide spool or throw a faster reel on occasion. But mostly it's either 6.4, 6.8 to 1 on almost all my reels, except when I'm really trying to keep a bait deep. And or down in the water column. Or like, for example, that's a faster reel when I'm throwing that wake bait. Not because I have to, it's just easier on the arms and on the wrists and on the hands. You don't have to turn that handle quite as many times to get that bait to travel across the top of the water. Buzz bait the same way, any kind of topwater bait that you're trying to move. Otherwise, that's the basics of my reels. I'm trying to think. Now, one thing I have done, and I kind of, so I really have historically liked this paddle handle style. Matter of fact, I mentioned to y'all, well, I'll talk about this in a second, but that's the newest on the high-end reels is that specific paddle handle style reel. I really like this. And it's funny, I was talking to Clayton Boulware, who's a really good local fisherman here, and all of his reels have the big round, these on them. And what I have discovered as I started really kind of paying attention to it is I kind of like this for certain applications. And specifically, if I'm wearing gloves, these are way easier to hold on to. If I'm flipping, this is just easier to grab. It's a bigger, bulkier handle. Pop a fish and you reach over there and I want to have instant grab. And I caught that watching. It's interesting what you see watching yourself on video. I saw me pretty regularly when I was flipping. If you go back to that video at Athens when I was catching all those flipping fish, several times I popped those fish and I fumbled for the handle because I flip left-handed and I only engaged the reel. I pop them and I would fumble for the handle. So I bought, you can buy that handle separately from Lew's, and I bought 6 or 8 of these handles and I've swapped them to several of my rods for winter fishing specifically, or for flipping fishing, because they're just easier to handle when you use gloves. Now, this reel, remember I talked earlier about sometimes it feels like it's harder to reel a bait in? It ain't with this reel. If you ever picked up a reel at the store and reeled it with no line on it, that's what this reel feels like. This is a spoiler reel. This reel will screw you up because it is so incredibly easy to reel. Cast great. If Lew's called me and said, man, we're going to put you on staff, what do you want? I'd say, give me all those you'll give me, because that is a fantastic reel. I think it's a 200, 230, and it may not still be this exact model. I've got the reel that's very similar to it, but I think this is the newest model of it. I think it's a $230 reel, and someday I hope to have nothing but those reels. But I mean, like that reel right there, that's an old Laser MG. I bet you that reel is 7 or 8 years old, but it's still just a great reel. It's been a workhorse for me, so I continue to use reels that are quite out of style. Matter of fact, there's a white reel. It must be in the rod box right now. That's an old, that kind of freshwater, saltwater reel that Lew's makes that I still throw because I just love that reel. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. So narrow body reels most of the time, wide body when I throw 20-pound or heavier line. Now I will tell you, like when I throw my frog, that's 60-pound line and it's braid, but it doesn't take up as much space on the reel. So when I'm throwing braid, I stay with the narrower band, sorry, I'm lost train of thought, with the narrower spools on with throwing braid. But when I'm throwing that big line, I throw those wide spools. When I'm throwing a smaller line, I throw the narrow spools, mostly 6-ish to 1 reel ratios, except a few really slow ones or a few really fast ones for very, very specific applications. So if you didn't see the rod video, I'll put a link right there so you can go check it out. And I'm gonna start something for you guys that I've not done before. So thanks for watching, for tuning in and staying all the way through. I'm a little bit of a music nut. Actually, my first date with my wife was to a live show. It was to a Bob Schneider show at the Granada in Dallas. For those of you who know who Bob Schneider is, or even know where the Granada is. But I'm gonna start throwing in on the end of some of my videos my favorite music videos, links to them. So if you've never heard of them, there's some guys out of Colorado. It's a band called Bigheaded Todd and the Monsters. And they've got some fabulous music of their own, but a buddy of mine turned me on to a cover song they did the other day. And it's a song from my childhood called Brandy. Matter of fact, my stepdaughter was almost named Brandy. Luckily, my first wife said no to her then husband, because he wanted to name Jordan Brandy because of this song. But Bigheaded Todd and the Monsters did a cover for the song Brandy, and it is a rock out. So there's a link right there. Go check out Brandy by Bigheaded Todd, and I'm gonna start posting every once in a while, posting some videos with some links to some music in them. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. You know what, I'm gonna jump out of the boat. I'm gonna show you one more thing, because somebody commented to me the other day. For those of you who have little kids in boat barns, I'm gonna show you one more thing at the back. Just check it out. But let's run back there and I'll show you what I'm talking about, and we'll sign off. Okay, so a buddy of mine saw this the other day and he said, hey man, your bag got stuck back here. For those of us who have small ones, kids or grandkids, in the boat barn or wherever you keep your boat, I've started doing this. Not dropping the camera. I have put a cover over the prop, because that prop is really sharp, and you know, according to where it is, the kids were running through back here, and I was just so worried somebody was gonna fall on or grab that prop and get cut. I put that on there, and I'll tell you, I put it on there. I've driven off once with it on there and realized it, but eventually I will lose that, because that's just the nature of me. So I didn't put one of my nice prop covers on there, but I mean, you could do a bucket, you could throw a towel. This thing's got a heavy duty base in it, bottom in it. But just a thought, if you got kids in the boat barn, that's a way to keep them a little bit safer from something that's so sharp and right at their level. So just a thought, guys. Thanks. All right, guys, hope that was helpful. Just a thought there on the kids, but thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys. We got a lot of fishing coming up this this January. So we'll see you guys January, February, fishing Rayburn, Ford, kind of all over the place. Thanks, guys.